Good evening. This is Mike Benoit. I'm the current chair of the San Diego Libertarian Party and decided to do this little short video on my response to the city of San Diego passing a minimum wage law increase. I wrote a letter to the mayor and I carbon copied in all the council members, so I'd like to read that letter to you now. Dear Mayor Faulkner, I'm writing to ask you to veto the recently passed legislation to raise the minimum wage in San Diego. These sorts of letters are difficult for me to produce, as how does one tell someone something they should already know full well? I know it's quite trite to quote the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence in the 21st century, but I'm compelled to restate the obvious. As you already know, our nation was founded on the principle that we were all endowed with certain inalienable rights, and that governments were instituted among men to secure these rights. These rights include the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So since we know that governments are not instituted to provide life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that if government tried to provide these things to some, it would deprive those things to others. Government is not supposed to pick winners and losers. So government should not be engaged in the taking property from one citizen and then giving it to another. The argument regarding whether or not to raise the minimum wage seems at this juncture rooted in the utility of the matter. In the affirmative, they argue the benefits of such an action, and in the negative, the detriments. I sit wondering how anyone can think violating one for the benefit of the other should ever even be considered. How do the 9 council members conceive that this power was granted to them? I watched some of the video of those in attendance at the city council meeting where this abomination of legal plunder was passed. There were many happy faces. I asked myself, why do these people think it's okay to steal other people's money if the law permits it? Now, of course, we know that a minimum wage increase forced on employers causes them to take a loss or pass a cost on to their customers, thus plundering their customers to pay the freight of the original plunder that the legislators passed. This plunder goes on until the whole society sanctions this kind of theft and we are turned into a pirate society. Anarchists argue with me all the time. I'm drifting off the letter. I'm going off the letter now. Anarchists argue with me all the time about how government is violating people, and as if they come up with a concept as if that was part and parcel of what government is. But herein lies the real issue. It's when government tries to provide a benefit to some, can only do that by punishing others. And if we think of what is the legitimate purpose of government, and that is to punish those who have violated others, then in that wise it does produce a benefit by the punishing of those who violate others and removing them from their ability to violate others. So think of it as a two-sided stick. On one side, the punisher; on the other side, the patron. If government tries to be the patron to some, it's punishing others, the other side of the stick. If it uses the punishment side to punish those that violate others, then it provides a benefit to us, the patron side of the stick. It requires a lot of study to find out why 60 years after 1954, it takes more labor for family to survive now than it did then. Obviously, with technological improvements, the amount of labor needed to provide a decent level of survival should be a whole heck of a lot less now than it was in 1954. Could it be that our governments are engaged in doing the very thing they were hired to prevent? That being the violation of our rights, plundering us? And could that be why it takes more labor to survive now, even though we have all these improvements technologically? In closing, this is again to Mayor Faulkner of San Diego. You can cop out by saying, and I should tell you that the vote was 6-3 on passing this minimum wage increase. 6 Democrats in favor, 3 Republicans opposed, and Mayor Fildner is Fildner. That's a Freudian slip. That's another story. Mayor Faulkner is a Republican, and so we'll see how he goes with this, and if he does veto this legislation. But this last paragraph addresses his taking the easy and lazy way out on this. That I'm telling him, even though this legislation passed by a veto-proof margin, that it's not an excuse to put your stamp of approval on this tyranny. Please veto this abomination of our rights to liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, and give me a chance to address the city council on the matter. And again, I should reiterate the fact that, you know, people, they argue the utilitarian argument on this, both sides. The anti will argue how detrimental it is going to be to the economy and the environment, and the pro side argues how good it's going to be. Now, that really shouldn't even be the argument, because it's not government's business to make things better out there. And again, if it tries to make it better for some, it makes it worse for others. And it sanctions this whole idea of legal plunder, that if the government says government passes law, it's okay to take from one to give to another. And this is what your socialism is rooted in, and all of this redistribution of property, and the redistribution of your free will to decide and choose for yourself. And so many folks are saying that, you know, big corporations aren't paying the people the right amount of money. You might just find out that a lot of these big corporations are in favor of minimum wage increases because their smaller competition can't keep up with it. But to say that the government can determine what you and I will pay or what we'll work for, to violate the right to contract like that, and then it does it under the guise that we're all going to be somehow better off for it. And if you look at my argument about the technology improving, yet it costs us more for a decent level of survival than it did 60 years ago, and it should cost us a heck of a lot less. Well, what's the why for it? It wasn't because you're not paid enough. It's because the cost of things. And why are the cost of things, why have they gone up when they should go down? Well, it could be because your government's authorizing the Federal Reserve Bank to print money and rob you of the purchasing value of your money. And they go unabated. So, you know, inflation is caused by the increase in the money supply, price inflation that is, and predominantly now. I mean, there's other causes for that, but what's happened right now in the last 50, 60 years is the increase in the money supply. So your money buys less. It's not that you know, somehow the cost of living is up and you need an increase in your wage, because that increase in the wage just drives the cost of living up. So it's what you can spend with the money you make, not how much money you make. And well, let's Federal Reserve, big reason for the cost of your purchasing of items going way up by the printing of money. But of course, the regulations, such as minimum wage and whatnot, that the government puts on all these businesses, and thus, the cost that they have to pay to do business goes up. And then we wonder why so many of our jobs have left and have gone overseas. And of course, that people that are dependent on the government, and the government has to raise all those taxes to pay for that scenario, that goes in the cost of the products that you're buying. I wouldn't be surprised that the governments would be very happy to see these wage increases, because I don't see them altering the tax structure. So if they move the bottom rung of the ladder up to $9, $10, $11, $12, whatever they move it up to, everybody that's on the higher rung, or people that are working someplace right now and they're making $1 more than what the they're making, say, what the minimum wage is going to go up to. Well, they're not going to be very happy about being at that same pay as somebody who is, making $1 an hour less, and they haven't earned the extra dollar. They're going to want to get their pay raised, and it's going to be a push all the way through the whole system to have a pay increase or raise. And what does that do as far as the tax structure goes? Well, it gives the government an opportunity to steal more of what you make. And so again, your purchasing power is not going to go up temporarily for just before the cost of the other things go up, but you'll not recover it. And so it's a red herring to even ask for. But what you're asking for is the permission, or you're asking for government to steal what you haven't earned from your employer and to give it to you. And employers sometimes just, are hoodwinked into this, but they realize that they'll just pass it on to the cost of their customers. So all of us pay in the end run, and the magnifying results of how much we pay. The products go up, and the state gets a bigger bite on the sales tax, and it goes on and on. But it's rooted in the philosophy of theft. It's rooted in plunder. It helps create a society, a pirate society, where your property is not sacred. The government will do a good job of stopping people who steal from one another, while the organized groups and units get government to do the stealing for them. And so the morality of the thing is, it's wrong, and it's not going to come out right. It's not the ends, the means justify the ends, because the means will produce an end that's as vile as the means. So that's Mike Benoit, my personal viewpoint. Even though I'm responding as the chair of the San Diego Libertarian Party, this is my truth. I wonder if you agree with it. Thanks for your time.